Steve, we talk a lot about Appalachia, but a lot of people think sometimes that Appalachia is just confined to a specific area. But, Ohio is part of Appalachia, whether a lot of people know it or not. And we just recently did a podcast about some events, things that took place involving life on the Ohio River near Wheeling, West Virginia, and involving a pioneer, frontiersman, and, well, Indian fighter by the name of Lewis Wetzel.
Yeah, I hadn't been aware of Lewis Wetzel a whole lot. I mean, we've talked about him before in our podcast about Simon Kenton, but he was actually very famous up in the Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio area for being a pioneer, a frontiersman, a woodsman, and an Indian fighter. And he's got a very interesting story that may not turn out the way you think it turns out. But it all starts back in 1763, or sometime close to then, when Mr. Wetzel was born. There's some controversy over where he was born. Either he was born in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, or he was born along the south branch of the Potomac River, where his parents had moved from Lancaster to settle as they moved into the frontier. His father, John Wetzel, was an indentured servant who came from Germany. His mother was a French Huguenot whose family name was Bonnet, although when you look at her name, it looks like Bonnet. I'm not sure, to be honest, how they pronounce it up there in Ohio, West Virginia, but I'm going to say Bonnet. Anyway, they came to the northern panhandle part of West Virginia right around 1770 and settled in a place called Wheeling Creek, which is near what's now obviously the city of Wheeling, West Virginia.
Yeah, thinking about Wheeling, West Virginia, I know that some people older people have probably heard this before, but what was that? Jubilee in the Mountains from the radio station up in Wheeling, West Virginia back? It was kind of like your rival of, I guess it's a little cruel to say rival, but it was sort of like the Grand Ole Opry.
That was big. There were several stations back then like that.
Yeah, I just remember Wheeling being mentioned about something like that. But, despite the challenges and all this of frontier living and so forth, there were a lot of hardships that, the family encountered during that time. And I think probably more than anything else, these conflicts with of course, the Native American tribes that lived nearby the Wetzels, where they lived at, it affected them. They survived to adulthood, but, to get a description of this guy, what he looked like, sounded like he was a pretty handsome guy. And I'm saying that, honestly here. 6 feet tall, dark brown hair. He was known for his exceptional prowess, great with weapons of all kinds, expert with a knife is what they said, a tomahawk, and yes, above all things, for all colonists, if you want to call it that, he was an expert with a black powder rifle. Now, he was a force to be reckoned with when he was out on the frontier. What set him apart was, he was able to go and load and fire his rifle with expert marksmanship. Just incredible while he was running at full speed, and he got the nickname Deathwind. Whoa, that sounds like a name for a movie or something, something really eerie there. But he was also known to carry a mouthful of lead shot in his mouth as he ran so he could quickly reload on the run. And I think I've actually seen something that's close to that. And I don't know if you remember I think it's Last of the Mohicans. I believe Daniel Day-Lewis, there's a part in it where Daniel Day-Lewis kind of does that sort of thing. Michael Mann is the director, and it shows them on the run, and there he is. And I think I see him pulling something out of his mouth, and he's loading as they're on the run to try to catch the Indians and so forth there toward the end of the movie.
Well, and they're probably using this to write that script, to be honest with you.
May have. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, just the legend of it.
Well, the Wetzel family endured numerous raids by Native Americans, especially during those times following the death of Chief Logan at the hands of settlers the incident that sparked Lord Dunmore's War. And those incidents led to increased tensions and attacks on frontier towns and places like Fort Henry. Now, in 1778, when Lewis was 13 years old, he and his brother Jacob were kidnapped and captured by Native Americans. During that attack, he was wounded in his chest. But despite being grazed by that bullet, Lewis and his brother managed to escape and make it back home within 2 days. Now, he grew to be 6 feet tall, very athletic, with a reputation that inspired both fear and admiration. He also, unlike most other frontiersmen of the day, grew his hair long in the style of the Native American tribes, long ponytail down the middle of his back. That look was described as striking, Rod, catching the attention of the ladies at the time.
So I guess he was the 18th century equivalent to Axl Rose, so to speak.
No, I'm thinking Fabio is what I'm thinking.
Well, no, Fabio had this, flowing hair. As best I recall, that's the way he talked. It was a little bit strange, but still, hey, he gained a reputation as, yes, he caught the attention of the ladies, but with that ponytail and all, Wetzel did gain a reputation as an Indian fighter, is what he ended up doing. And he participated in all these different military campaigns, such as the Battle of Point Pleasant. I think it took place in 1774. His older brother Martin also fought by his side alongside other frontier legends of all people. Daniel Boone, that's right, Daniel Boone, who down in Tennessee supposedly carved on a tree, said, "I killed a bear," here. And then you have who we've talked about before, Simon Kenton. But during 1781, though, Steve, I think this was probably the thing that kind of turns everything around here. At least 1781. Colonel Broodhead, Daniel Broodhead, in the Ohio River Valley, he made a detour to the Turtle Clan village that's located near what's known as Newcomerstown, Ohio. And Lewis's brother, young brother, Martin, attacked one of the chiefs from behind with a tomahawk. And when that happened, Martin attacked with that chief. He killed the chief, and then this terrible battle was predicted, so to speak, by Broodhead. He retreated and then refocused his troops on making it to their next destination. But I guess this was the thing that really got things going. 1786, in the month of June, Lewis Wetzel ended up, his father and his brother George lost their lives after they were attacked by tribesmen during a return canoe trip from a hunting expedition. George, John, both, like I said, they lost their lives. But this left such a deep mental wound for Lewis. It fueled his thirst for, what can you say, vengeance in this whole case.
Yeah, it did. That loss did do it to him. In fact, it drove him to participate in several military campaigns specifically against Native American tribes in the Ohio region. Mm-hmm. And his skills as a scout and a frontiersman were unmatched, and during those campaigns, he claimed to have taken numerous Native American scalps. His actions were not without controversy, obviously. He was implicated in the deaths of several friendly Indians, many of whom were actually asleep when he attacked them. However, bad as those were, one incident in particular turned public opinion definitely against him. And that incident involved a Seneca chief named Tegunte, who was nicknamed George Washington by American soldiers due to his solid, honest, and upright character, a Washingtonian-style character. Well, turns out in 1788, Tegunte came to Fort Harmar near present-day Marietta, Ohio, ostensibly to do some negotiations and to help the American soldiers. There, though, Wetzel ambushed, shot, and scalped him on an isolated path, resulting eventually in the chief's death. This incident turned public opinion against Wetzel.
And here's this, Steve. Tagunte lived long enough to name who killed him or who attacked him out of this whole thing. And then Wetzel, after he was, I guess, caught, he gladly admitted to a colonel, Josiah Harmer, that he killed Tagunte, and he bragged and he just said, I'll shoot them down like the worthless dogs that they are as long as I live. Pretty bold statement from somebody like that to kind of say what you've said and say, compare your enemy, so to speak, in this one as worthless dogs. Well, Wetzel did escape, though. He tried to stay away from them. He was, gone 2 weeks, something like that, 2 weeks. He avoided the men that were chasing after him for 2 weeks. He was then captured, put back into jail, didn't stay there long because, before it was over with, he managed to club his jailer, the one that was, keeping an eye on him, and then he was supposed to be tried for this, of killing Chief Tagunte, and then later, gone a week, recaptured again, and then lo and behold, by the time he was taken to Fort Washington, he was placed in jail. And Steve, this is kind of funny. I did not know this until we started recording this and reading a little bit more about it. Fort Washington is now known as Cincinnati. I did not know that.
Yeah, that was how Cincinnati got started. And Fort Washington / Cincinnati, as you said, was where they finally caught him and put him in jail. He did not stay there long this time either, because a 200-man mob led by none other than Simon Kenton came to the jail and forcibly removed him and set him free. Well, as the frontier moved farther west, along with the Native American tribes in Ohio, so did Lewis Wetzel. He took off to the Louisiana Territory and basically ended up, after a while, down in New Orleans. There he got involved in, of all things, counterfeiting, for which he was placed in prison. His final years, stories tend to vary. Some folks say that he went to live with his cousin and passed away at his cousin's house in 1808. Others say that he, indeed moved even farther west to Texas, along the Brazos River, where he married a Mexican woman and stayed with her until 1839 when he passed away. Most, though, Rod, believe that he actually died in 1808 at his cousin's house because they found some human remains there later on that were similar to the size and shape of what Lewis Wetzel's would be, and it had a ponytail. So they exhumed that body and they moved it up to McCrary Cemetery in Marshall County, West Virginia, where his body rests today. Very interesting story.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting also about this story too, if folks haven't realized this and so forth, the Indians, all the tribes were kind of fractured, so to speak. I mean, you had Indians, American Indians, but you had some that supported the American Revolution. You had others that were trying to go, and the British were trying to affect them also. You had just all this sort of, they were factions, and they were fractured all out there and stuff. And then here's the second thing. Wetzel goes, and he goes on what I deem is sort of like a killing spree. And I almost compare it up to, I think, like I said in the podcast that we recorded earlier, I compare him up to probably an Indian that did the same thing, all up and down from Pennsylvania down to Georgia, I think is what he ended up doing at one time, dragging canoe along with Chief Benj, or Chief Benji, if you want to call him that. It's sad. It's sad in such a way that it resorted to this. I mean, I can see wanting to go and get some revenge, at least in this part of where you lost your father, you lost your brother, and so forth. But, oh man, he just, I think the thing that gave me the chills was the scalps, when you mentioned that earlier. Yeah. That's the one that gave me that kind of gave me the, how would Velma say this in Scooby-Doo? The heebie-jeebies? I think that's what it kind of gave me a little bit when I heard that. So,
yeah. Well, this is one of those stories, and we've had several that we've told years ago that changes, opinion changes about those stories over time. At one time, I'm sure he was seen as a hero, a frontier hero who fought the Indians. Now, I dare say this is more one of those that, this guy was part of a wave of pioneers that came and took Indian land and forced out the natives and killed them and massacred them and, those sorts of things. What he did was bad. It was bad. And had he not moved over there, had his family not moved there, none of this would have happened. It's just, whether for good or for bad, part of Appalachian history.
Yep.
And you can take it for what you want to take it for. If you think he was doing a bad thing, then he was doing a bad thing. If not, he wasn't. So,
well, I mean,
just part of Appalachian history.
Right. And all we're trying to do is tell people about it. You make the decision however you want to feel about it. We're not trying to present sides out of it. We're just trying to go and present this as the story has been told, kind of passed down to us, because this, passing the stories down, that's what's important. And people will make their own judgment calls as time goes on, and I'm sure things will change probably in another 100 to 200 to 300 years if we're all around by that time, and I'm sure the view will probably change then too.
Well, folks, we appreciate it. Thank you for watching us here on YouTube. It is the story of Lewis Wetzel. It's what we just told. Frontiersman, Indian fighter, and another one of the stories of Appalachia. Thanks for watching. Be sure to click that subscribe button down below. Give us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And give us a thumbs up, too. We appreciate that. Till next we meet, y'all take care. So long, everybody.
So long.